What's up, my name is Dr. Alex Straley, and in this video I'm going to show you how to improve your mobility for a better bench press. Alright, so we're going to take a look at shoulder extension, shoulder internal rotation, scapular retraction, thoracic extension and rotation, as well as hip extension. Now, I'm not going to be talking about the wrist or the elbow, because really the wrist just needs to stay stable and the elbow has to bend, and that's usually not where people have problems, is not enough elbow flexion. So let's get into shoulder extension. So shoulder extension, why do we actually need it? Let's take a look. Now, when you bench press, you're going to bring the bar obviously down to your chest. Your shoulder is now extended, your elbow is behind your body. You can mitigate this with a bigger arch, but you're going to have at least some shoulder extension going on. Now, what can happen if you don't have enough shoulder extension, you're going to find that your shoulder rotates forward in order to get you more extension. That's not going to be good. That's going to pull your scapulas out of place, and it's going to make you lose some of that tightness that you worked so hard to build up, which means you're not going to be able to lift as much. So shoulder extension is really valuable. Hey, so I feel like I did not explain this really well. So when we do shoulder extension, our shoulder is going to naturally come forward a little bit. What we don't want to see is a huge dipping of the shoulder. So naturally, comes forward a little bit. We don't want to see this dipping motion. So for shoulder internal rotation, it's going to help keep the bar stacked over the elbow. Now, whether or not the bar should be stacked over the elbow or the elbow a little bit slightly in front, both of which have been thrown out there. But we want at least one of the two. We don't want the elbow way in front, which would be too much external rotation. Additionally, if we have very little to no internal rotation, that's actually going to put more stress onto the lats and the chest. For shoulder retraction, most people have the ability to squeeze their shoulder blades enough. Now, for the bench press, it's more so a stability than a mobility issue. Whether or not someone can squeeze your shoulder blades without some spinal compensations or without the arms having to get involved. Unless you plan on benching with your spine flexed, you're going to need some thoracic extension. This is what creates that huge arch. Additionally, not having enough thoracic extension / rotation in your everyday life is just going to put more stress onto your shoulders. So this is actually one of the most important things to address. Hip extension is the last thing we're going to talk about, and this is the only time I'm actually going to touch on it. It's honestly not that big of a mobility deficit for most people, as you can place your feet a little bit higher up. So when we look at shoulder extension, go ahead and extend your arm or bring it behind your body. When you get to the point that you cannot go any farther, bend your elbow. Your fist should be close to, if not past your chest, because this is how far we need to get down when we're benching. Take notice to not let the shoulder roll forward, as this is going to bring your body out of position and lose a lot of stability. I will say that the wider a grip you have on the bench, the less shoulder extension you need. When we look at internal rotation, try to touch the bottom of the opposite shoulder blade. This will not only test internal rotation, but it will also test extension as well. It should be one fluid motion. Stand up tall and don't let your hand climb up your back. Since this motion does not test purely internal rotation, if you're not able to touch your shoulder blade, that is not indicative that you cannot fully internally rotate, but that you may have some internal rotation dysfunction. For scapular retraction, we should be able to do this without any extra motion going on. So simply squeeze your shoulder blades together. Now, I don't need my arms to come back with me, and I don't want to see any real spinal deviations going on. It's simply squeeze the shoulder blades. Again, this is not going to be a mobility deficit for most people. It's going to be motor control. And what I mean by that is most people are able to do it. You can physically get pushed into that range of motion, but you might not be able to do it properly. You might have to use other muscles, or you just can't do it as you should. For thoracic extension and rotation, you're going to get in a quadruped position, which is on hands and knees. Have your butt down by your feet, and you're going to rotate up. Place one hand on the low back. If this gives you irritation in your shoulder, you can also place it behind your head. You should not have any swaying side to side. It's very common to see people lean over to try to get more extension. So video yourself from the front to make sure that you're staying in line. If you have a problem getting down this position, you can also do it seated. Get in a good posture, hands over your chest, and rotate both sides. So one thing that can hold back your shoulder extension is having tight pecs. Now I did a whole other video on the corner pec stretch. Go ahead and give that a look after this video. Another thing we need to address is your lats. So you're going to have one hand under, one hand over on a bar. You can also do this on a countertop. And the underhand is going to be the hand that we're stretching. So from here, you're going to dip your hips back. And at this point, I already feel a little bit of stretch down my armpit. To make it even better, you're going to twist your overhand shoulder and your hips towards the underhand, which is going to create this bowing effect on your body. This is going to lengthen the lats even more, making for a better stretch. And once you get in this position, do some little micro adjustments until you feel it right where you want to. As always, doesn't need to be super intense, just a moderate intensity. Hold that for 30 seconds, do it 3 or 4 times, and you're really going to feel a big difference in your lats. So another way to improve your shoulder extension is with P&Fs. Now what this is, find a rack, find a wall, find a doorway. You're going to come up next to it, place your fists up against it. I'm in a stagger stance to help protect my low back, and I'm going to push against the wall. This should be a moderate intensity, and you're holding for about 5 to 10 seconds. Relax, lean in a little more, and press again. Once you've done that about 5 times, go ahead and retest your shoulder extension. And the last way to improve shoulder extension I'm going to talk about is just doing shoulder extension. If we get in here enough times and kind of work this movement, it's going to help free it up. So to improve that internal rotation, find a band and put it higher on the rack. You're going to grab it and you're going to do that exact same motion we tested with. And this band is literally just going to pull you up into more internal rotation. I'll usually have people do this about 10 times, take a little break, and then do 3 sets of that. All right, for this next one, grab yourself a small dumbbell or even a small plate. Bring yourself up to a 90-90 position, and this is going to help both external and internal rotation. You're going to go back, externally rotate, letting gravity do the work. Once you feel that your shoulder is no longer moving, actively try to go into more external rotation. Do the same thing coming forward. Let gravity take over. Once you feel it stop, actively internally rotate a little more. So the third way, if you find that one a little too intense especially, it's called the Egyptian. You can do this laying down or standing up, but you're going to work both shoulders at the same time. So 90-90 on both sides, and just going to rotate them back and forth. This again should not be painful, and you should feel it loosen up over time. So one exercise I really love for training scapular retraction is with the cables. Now you're going to line this up about chest height, and I put my arm over the cable versus underneath it. I just find it feels a little bit better. So from here, you're going to punch all the way out, bring it back with the shoulder blade. So here's my relaxed, and I'm going to squeeze my shoulder blade back. From here, I'm going to mimic the bench press movement. So coming down to my chest and punching back out. All the meanwhile, I'm really focusing on squeezing my shoulder blades and not letting it get loose. So what happens a lot of times, especially when we're maxing out on bench, we try to use every single muscle we have, and we end up rounding our shoulders forward and losing that stability in the back. So really training your shoulders to be able to stay back as you press is going to help improve your bench quite a bit. There's a lot of different ways to mobilize the T-spine, so let's just look at a few. For the first one, you're going to have one knee in front and one knee back. Whatever knee's in front, that arm is going to go down, and you're going to use your other arm to rotate up. You may actually get some pops with this in your back, and that's okay. Do this about 5 or 10 times and switch sides. So another thing you can do is find a chair or a bench. Now if you're using a bench like I am, place that bench about the middle of your back. From there, go hands over your head just to get your shoulder blades out of the way, and you're going to lean over the chair. Hold that for a few seconds and do this about 10 to 20 times. Now you can readjust your positioning or what spinal level you're working at by simply scooting up or down on the chair. So you can do the same type of thing with the foam roller as well, and I find that the foam roller works really well at the middle of your thoracic back or the middle of your mid back. So that's it. We got shoulder extension, shoulder internal rotation, scapular retraction, thoracic extension, and then we also talked about hip extension. Find which one of these you have the most deficits in and include it into your warm-up. I tried to mention how many you should do, but if you have any questions, just go ahead and leave it in the comments below. I hope this helps you get a bigger, stronger bench. Click the top video to watch the corner pec stretch and the bottom video how to assess your squat mobility. Thanks for subscribing.